Hey guys, Yordsley here, and in this video I want to talk about my first impressions of the 2023 BMW F850 GS Adventure that's sitting here. I bought this bike brand new back in February, and I have 800 miles on it. In that 800 miles, I have added the panniers, and I changed the tires from the stock street tires that came with it to the Dunlop Trail Max Missions. As far as stuff done to the bike, that's really it, other than a first service. This one does not have the electronic rear suspension. It has the factory low suspension with the extra low seat, so some of the stuff I say about that might be a little different based on what model and package you get with the bike. First impressions, this bike's great. The gearing and everything on it's super good. It down low, it picks up really quick. It feels a little hollow at higher RPMs, but down low and grunting around does perfect. For doing off-road gravel riding, like getting to the field I'm in right now, it is perfect for this type of riding. I do hesitate to call it a middleweight adventure bike, though, as I say that. I had a KTM 890 Adventure R. I have a CRF 300L Rally. I've gotten to sit on and not so much experience, but I've been around a couple Teneres and the Suzuki 800DE. And this thing just feels heavy. And it makes sense having the aluminum panniers, the crash bars, the really big gas tank, all the wind protection, the auxiliary lights. It makes sense that it feels heavy. But to call it a middleweight adventure bike seems a little misleading. I want to say it's like a light, heavy adventure bike. But it doesn't make the same power as something like a 1250 GS. I'm not sure what the numbers look like for the Honda African Twin, but if I had to guess, I would say that's what this bike's closest competitor is, just from the power levels and general stance of it. Like with the KTM 890 Adventure R, it sat like a dirt bike. You sat right on top of it, you felt super high up in the air, and the Tenere feels that way to an extent, but not as bad. But on this bike, you sit right down in it. You feel like you're one with the bike. And to some people, that's a benefit, and to other people, they don't like it. So that's a personal preference thing. But for myself, for road comfort, for tourability, for doing long highway miles, to get to the gravel roads and the destinations I want to ride, to me, this bike feels way better than the KTM. Its road manners are so much calmer. Whenever semi-trucks and stuff pass you, because it is heavier, you don't get blown around as much. Really at all. It tracks perfect everywhere I've had it. I will say the bike feels absolutely horrible in mud. As soon as it hits mud, it wants to spin. It does not want to track through it very good. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I have the Dunlop Trail Max Mission rear tire too, which I'll throw a picture up on the screen now. And it doesn't have knobs, so to speak. It looks like a street tire with really deep grooves. But that's okay, because in the gravel and riding through grassy and rocky stuff, it feels absolutely wonderful. As long as if you stay away from the mud and you stick to the more hard-packed surfaces, it does amazing. I do have a couple complaints with the bike, though. The first being the front forks. The suspension on this bike is too soft. Anytime you do any sort of heavy braking or basically any sort of hit to the front suspension, you feel that softness. And on the road, it soaks up potholes and bumps super great, and that actually makes it feel really good. But off-road, not having any sort of adjustability or anything, if you get into any super technical stuff or anything, you can definitely feel the softness of the front forks. And also on the road, if you have to do emergency braking and you're really hammering that front brake, you get a ton of fork dive and you can feel the whole bike go down. And it does upset the chassis a little bit because the brakes on it, well, they're not super sport level brakes. They are very good for a bike of this size and price point. And under that heavy braking, you can feel the whole bike dive down forwards, and it does upset the chassis, and it can throw you off a little bit if you're not expecting it. Quick shifter on the bike, first to second, second to third, feels super harsh at times. I'm not sure if it's just because of the RPM range I'm in at, or that's just how they feel on the BMWs, but it feels kind of terrible. And there's a little bit of jerkiness between first and second, second to third. But anything over that, it is super smooth, works absolutely fantastic. Downshifting all seems to work smooth, except for second to first. It doesn't really like that either. You get a little bit of that jerkiness. As far as electronics on the bike go, Enduro Pro mode is absolutely awesome. It lets you get the rear wheel out sideways a little bit before taking over, and it does take over. You can feel it grab a hold with the traction control. But I say that, I kind of think it's a good thing with having 95 horsepower, I think, and was it like 68 newton meters of torque, whatever that works out to actually being in foot-pounds. Throw the specs up on screen in case I'm butchering them. It's nice because whenever you're putting down that much power to the ground, the bike can get very squirrely very quickly, especially if you're not used to having a bike of that power. And having the traction control that intervenes and stops it from going completely sideways on you is pretty nice and makes a bike feel a lot more manageable. That being said, if you want traction control completely off, there's just a button right here on the dash. You hold it down for like 5 seconds, traction control turns off, you don't have any control at that point in time. There is no traction control at that point in time. At nighttime, the lights are really good, but I come from a world of touring bikes, and something that I almost always run the auxiliary lights when running at night, because I like whenever I turn the handlebars, the light to turn with the bars as you're going around turns and stuff. And if you don't have the auxiliary lights on, the way they're made, it can feel like you're outrunning your headlights in the turns a little bit. And that's not a big deal. It just takes a little bit to get used to, but it is something of note. These handguards, the factory handguards that come with this bike, they're just plastic. I mean, they'll save your hand if you hit some brush or something with it, but don't expect them to take any big impacts or anything. And I'm kind of thankful they did the design that way because of where they're mounted at. They are mounted right here, and they share the same mount as the mirror. So if they had the metal bar running through them and that was a metal bracket mounted there, and you took a really big hit, say you wreck into a hillside or something and your handguard hits the ground really hard, if it was metal, it would rip that mirror mount right off with it too, and then you'd be leaving without a handguard and a mirror. The way it is now, if you hit the ground, it's just plastic, it's going to break, and, well, you're going to get to keep your mirror. So I actually kind of appreciate that design. Though I imagine if you're wanting to protect your levers and put something a little sturdier on there, it wouldn't be a bad idea. That being said, these lower crash bars are super strong. You can tell that they're made of high quality material, and they're actually beefy enough that I think if you hit the ground decently hard, they would do a good job of protecting the bike, at least the lower part. I have not had the bike down yet, so I can't vouch for it, but it looks like the way they're made and they're back away from it, you could hit it pretty hard and before it hits your fairing. That's the main things I like about the bike. Another thing I really like about the bike too is the adjustable windshield, being able to open that up and lower it back down and not have to worry about, well, if you're going off-road and then you're going on-road, and being able to have two different settings for it's really nice. Also, this has the keyless ride on it, so you don't have to have a key out to open up the gas tank or to start the bike. And I really like that because if you're wearing gloves and you're digging through your pocket, not having to dig through your pocket to get those makes it nice. We're going to transition now over to the camera to show you the controls and everything. Alright, I'm going to hold you here in my hand while we go over this. And here's the traction control button. You just click it and hold it for like 5 seconds and traction control turns off. You got your cruise control there, super easy to work, the BMW Wonder Wheel. And I've had a lot of touring bikes. I had an Indian Roadmaster, an Indian Chieftain. I used to ride around on a Honda Goldwing. And I had a couple Yamaha Cruisers. And out of all the controls I've had, this Wonder Wheel has worked absolutely the best. And that's really amazing. To do your auxiliary lights, it's right there. High beam, low beams back here. For your ride modes, if we turn on the bike here, we'll see there's the keyless ride. Ignore how dirty it is. I need to wash it. Ride modes, there's just a button right here. Super easy. Heated grips are there. And overall, the electronics package and the adjustability of everything all be in here, super nice. USB port here if you want to charge your phone, or like you put a GoPro or mount or something and you want to be able to power it. And then here's a BMW auxiliary accessory. A question you might find yourself asking is, why should I pick the BMW over, say, a Tenere 700 or a Transalp or a Suzuki 800DE or KTM? And really, it comes down to personal preference and what your budget looks like. Like, I know the Tenere and the Transalp for sure don't have cruise control. They don't come with heated grips. They don't come with an adjustable windshield. At least not one that adjusts this easily. Road manners wise, the BMW having the factory quick shifter and everything on it makes it handle very, very nice. And it being a little bit heavier actually helps it on the road. So, to me, this BMW is more for someone who wants to do like 80-20 adventure riding. They really want to do a lot of highway miles. They really want to run around up in the mountains and stuff and not necessarily ride on gravel roads, but they want something that feels good on the pavement too. The KTM is the opposite side of that. It was like 20% on road, 80% off. This is 80% on road, 20% off. The Tenere 700 is probably more 50-50, and the Transalp and the Suzuki 800DE is like 60-40. So it really comes down to what your riding's going to look like, and you need to be realistic with yourself about what your expectations out of the bike are. Like for me, if I'm wanting to run it on a highway, I want cruise control. I want the adjustable windshield, so whenever I get into the mountains, I can have the air hit me, but whenever I'm running around on a highway, I can keep it off me. And while it might not look like it, I don't know what the range of that increase is, maybe 3 inches. It really does make a big difference. It helps a ton. If you're in a really windy day and it's kind of cool out, and that puts the air. So with it down, I get hit with it around the lower neck region. I'm 5'11". I get hit with it around the lower neck region. With it up, I get hit at the very top of my helmet. So, and the air that comes off of it whenever it's low and whenever it's up is super clean air. You don't get buffeting, you don't get your head bobbing around or nothing. So it's they did a really good job on that. One thing to note is the factory protection underneath here. As you can see, the exhaust is all exposed on the front. And while there is a skid plate down there, you can see on this side the catalytic converter is not covered by it. And the skid plate does work. I hit it kind of hard and it held up good. But having it like that does make it a little nerve-wracking at times whenever you're going through technical terrain. Because if you hit a rock hard or you catch it weird, you're smashing exhaust pipes. Also, back here on the rear, the skid plate stops here. So if you slide past your skid plate, say you hit a rock and you keep sliding, you're going to hit that resonator box. And chances are you're probably going to put a dent in it or you're going to damage it at some point in the way, but that's alright. Here's the rear suspension preload knob adjustment. And one thing they did on this bike that I do like is this foot peg here. Let me open this. This brake lever here. Oh, can't see it. This brake lever here, you can pull it up and flip it up out of the way. So if you're doing off-road riding or on-road riding, and you can gain that extra height if you're wearing motocross boots or something like that. Another thing I really like about the BMW system is the boxes. They are key matched to the key that came with my bike. And to get them off, all you have to do is stick your key in and pop it open, and then they pop right off. And then I get them back on. Well, the latch closed on me a little bit. To get them back on, you just slide them back on. And it takes like 30 seconds to take them off and put them back on. It's not a big deal. It works super easy. One thing I will note, you notice how I didn't take my key out? If you have the latch open, your key it'll come out, okay? But you have to change it in a position where you can't shut it, so you have to put the key back in it to turn it so you can open it up so you can put it back on. So you can't leave your key out of it when you put it back on because you have to be able to turn the latch. Not a big deal. And the latch, just, bloop. Yeah, it works fine. Once they're on there, there's no shake. They're not loose or nothing. They hold absolutely solid. And they did a really good job on these. Overall, I'm super happy with the bike. It handles great. It does everything I need it to do. Its road mannerisms is the best on the adventure bikes I've tried anyways. Its off-road mannerisms do leave a little to be desired, but like I said, if you're wanting to do super technical off-road stuff, you're probably not going to be happy with the weight of this bike anyways. You'll probably want something like a KTM 890 Adventure R, Husqvarna 701, something lighter, something that's a little easier to manage with a higher body position. That way you can move the bike through the technical stuff. The way it is now, this is so high up, whenever you stand on it, you can grab it with your legs, your knees and stuff super easy. You can grab the gas tank. But you don't feel like you have a lot of flickability to it. It does handle good, but for super technical off-road stuff, you'd probably be happier with something else. But for gravel roads, for blacktop riding, for highway riding, this has been by far the best middleweight adventure bike I have tried and owned. So I got to give BMW really good credit for that. Now the elephant in the room. The price. I left the dealership around $16,000 for the premium package, giving me the cruise control, the heated grips, the adventure with the crash bars and the quick shifter and the adjustable windshield and the little extra winglets and the auxiliary lights and the rider mode pros, so I get the Enduro Pro mode. And at $16,000, it puts it very, very high on the list with like the Super Tenere, the Honda African Twin, So you really have to ask yourself what features you want to value most at that price range, because you can get a really capable Honda Transalp for $9,999, at least here in the United States. You can get a Tenere 700 if you want to do more off-road riding for like $10,599, something like that. Suzuki 800DE with a quick shifter around that price point too. And then KTM just came out with their new 790, their Chinese version of their 890, I think. So, dollar price wise, BMW is at the very high end. And I say that, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But you have to ask yourself what features you really want for that price point. Because in this one, everything is super premium. Everything feels solid. There is no shake. There is no excess slop or anything. Everything works super smooth and feels super tight. And that's what I would expect out of a $16,000 bike. I would expect nothing less. And while BMW did a really good job on this, at $16,000 not having adjustable forks, that's kind of sad, because I paid $13,500 for my KTM 890 Adventure R, which at the time was a good deal. And then I paid an additional $500 to unlock the software package that let the cruise control and all that work. And while it didn't feel as premium, and I did have some issues with the engine on that bike, not wanting to start on both cylinders every time, and the quick shifter messing up the shifting, so I got locked into gear sometimes and wouldn't let me out of them. So it did feel like a less premium bike. But the price point was at a much better spot at $14,000 versus $16,000. So you really have to ask yourself, are those extra features and a premium feeling worth the extra cost deal? And for everyone, it might not be, because these are adventure bikes. They are going to get dropped. They are going to get beat up. So you really have to ask yourself, do I want to pay for that premium? And for me, since I'm doing primarily road riding, and I got rid of my 2021 Indian Roadmaster, so I was looking for a touring bike that I could also ride on gravel roads, this kind of fit the bill for me. Yeah, it's more expensive, but having the extra weight for the road riding, having the cruise control, having the heated grips and everything, all that actually was valuable to me. But you have to ask yourself, are they valuable to you? Is this 80-20 bike, is it going to do the kind of riding you want to do, or do you want a more 50-50? But that all comes down to personal preference, and nothing against the BMW. It's an absolutely premium bike. It feels amazing. Everything's super tight. The power delivery super smooth. The jerkiness, the only little bit of jerkiness I've had is from the quick shifter itself, but nothing major. All that to say, overall, I am super happy with my BMW, and I'm looking forward to riding it more this summer, and I want to make like a 5,000 mile review once I get to that point. And that'll give me a good time too to talk more about the tires and see how they're holding up after putting a lot of road miles on them. Because right now I only have like 300 miles on them. So overall, I'm super happy with the bike. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions or comments about the bike and you'd like answers to them, feel free to put them down below in the comments section, and I'll do my best to address all of them. If there's something specific you would like to know or would like me to show about the bike in another video, comment that, and I'll make another video for you and reply to your comment with it. That way you can figure out the features and stuff and see if this bike is the bike for you. Till then, yours layout.